Have you been drawing for a while, but you're starting to feel discouraged because you can never somehow accomplish on the paper what you have in your mind? To a degree, this is universal, but at the very least, it's really common. And then we end up feeling discouraged when, let's face it, we draw to, in some way, have a pleasant time, to feel good about ourselves and the world. So if our drawings are continually a disappointment, if we continually see the gap between what we imagined and what we've drawn, well, it's easy to get to the place of, why am I bothering to do this? If you know this feeling, then these next few minutes may, and I hope they will, change all of that for you. Now, sadly, it's not going to change the way you draw, but I hope it will change the way you think by giving you a new thought to throw into the mix with all of this. And that's this. For all of us, whatever stage of drawing we're at, whatever accomplishment in what we produce we have, our mind is always going to run ahead. Its creative thoughts are always going to go further than we have the technical, the skill level to actually bring into being on our paper. It's simply the way it is. It's simply the fact that our imagination is able to create more possibilities and to see more, and so our drawing is always going to be lagging behind the possibilities we know it could have. My imagination isn't limited by how will I make this happen and can I make it happen? It just sees the possibilities and throws the challenge out to us. And of course, in our enthusiasm, what we see in our mind is what we're hoping to achieve on the paper. And the way we get around this is to learn to be gentle with ourselves, to learn to be gentle and to be patient with our drawing ability, and instead of being discouraged with what we've drawn, to instead be encouraged with what we've been able to think and imagine, with the possibilities we've thought of. Because there will always be this gap between what we can imagine, the possibilities we can see, the end result we picture in our mind, and what we're able to create, regardless of how long we've been drawing or how proficient we've become in doing it. If this is the way it is, then it's really important for my mental well-being about my drawing to understand and to accept that this is a built-in difficulty with the system. And if you're finding this helpful, then please help me out and remember the like button. But I want to present the idea that it's not necessarily a difficulty, that it's not necessarily a negative. Because this gap between what I imagine and what I produce is also the area in which I can improve in the next period of time, in the next period of drawing. That what I can imagine is there to be drawn. It's within me somehow, and that's what I can strive towards, and that's where I will see improvement. If I can't see the way my drawings are perhaps inadequate, then I'm never going to have the wherewithal to change what I do in an improving way. The frustration can be that then, as we see this gap between our imagination and our drawing, and we improve, this gives us a focus with which to improve our drawing, that while we're doing that, our imagination is improving and growing as well. Our imagination is able to see more possibilities for our drawing. It's able to get inspiration from other drawings that it sees, and to work these into our own creative possibilities that we've already had and come up with new, better, more enticing possibilities. And so yet again, we start a bit of a way back from what we can see in our mind. It's not that we haven't improved, but because our imagination has gone further and our drawing hasn't caught up, there's still this gap where discouragement can set in. And the discouragement becomes the common thing that perhaps makes us feel like we haven't improved in a way that someone else looking at our drawings on a timeline would be able to see. It can be a bit like we're always running after the ball, and just as we feel like we're getting close to catching it, somehow it bounces further away. But this is the process. This is the way it works. The real issue is not in the fact that I can't achieve what I can imagine, but that I need to be considerate of my technical abilities and appreciate the dynamic that's at work here. And I think when we start drawing, particularly if we've thought about it for a long time before we've actually started the process of pen on paper, then it's easy for our imagination to have developed quite a long way ahead of where we're going to actually start. Particularly if we've been looking at artist drawings which have inspired us and maybe made us want to draw ourselves, we're going to be able to, in a sense, see their work quite clearly in our imagination, and that's what we're going to be chasing at the start. And also at the start, we simply may not appreciate the effort involved in learning to draw. We may think that somehow, because we have some natural talent, that it's going to be easier, when in fact it's no less effort than learning the piano or learning any creative endeavour to a high standard. And it can be also easy to not appreciate the fact that for any artist, especially when they're producing drawings that I would love to be able to draw, which in some ways are the ones in my mind that I can't yet draw, it's important to remember that for them, their imagination, the creative possibilities that come to their mind are still running ahead of what they're able to do. That no sooner do they reach a point of accomplishing to some degree where their imagination has led them, that their imagination has already taken off to the next possibility. This is how it is. And so clearly there is no need, no room, and no point in letting this be anything but a way of us realizing that we have things within us that's worth the effort, but it will be effort to get out. And that this is the road we will never meet the end of. There will always be more possibilities that our mind will race ahead to. We need to harness the emotional energy, the emotional tension that this gap between what we think and what we do creates as energy to use in focus and starting the next drawing with as much discernment and intention as to how we can bridge that gap, at least in some way, in our next drawing. Let me repeat again, if we can imagine it, if our creative thought processes conjure these pictures of drawings in our mind, then to some degree, right now even, there is capacity to move towards realizing those imaginations in our drawings. And as we keep moving down that path, we need to embrace the fact that our imagination will always take us further, faster, and not let this discourage us and to think, oh, I just can't do it. No, as our mind races forward, that's part of the process. That is our mind doing it. I need to bring the rest of my skills, the ones that aren't directly concerned with thinking, but are to do with ink on the paper and the translation of one to the other, to a high enough standard that I can start to see these thoughts in my drawings. So I would say, let us not let drawings that don't turn out the way we hope they would or imagine they would disappoint and discourage us. Instead, let them be a way of our improving, of focusing and of pushing on in working out how we need to develop our creative thought processes and then our technical skills so that what we imagine can be thought out in terms of what does that mean for marks on paper, and then we develop the technical skills to put those marks on the paper. None of us start at the end, but if it's in our mind, it's inside us to come out. So let me encourage you to keep pushing on and to see that gap between what I imagine and what I do as a focus for that pushing on. And if this has been a discouragement for you, I hope that what I've said has thrown some light on being able to understand that this is just part of the process of what it means to be a human, to have creative thinking, and then to seek to express it in whichever way is appropriate. But whatever your thoughts are, whatever you can imagine, and however your drawings turn out, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.